Thank you. So, hi everybody. My name is Enda. I'm currently a sophomore at Salt Lake City, greatest snow on earth, and I like to dabble in engineering projects. Outside of engineering, I also enjoy doing extemporaneous speaking and also tank modeling in my free time. And it's really a great thing that I'm here with you today to talk a little bit more about my project and potentially about myself. So, my project this year, Silver Sync, was started because of a 9-hour time period, which was the time that my grandmother's neighbor had spent on the floor on a fall, wondering when or if help would arrive. And I wanted to use my project potentially to see if this was a bigger societal problem, see if I can use my own engineering skills to do some good. So in the end, I was able to create a system that was able to mimic natural conversation with seniors using automatic speech recognition technology and utilizing natural language processing models like OpenAI's new ChatGPT to try and mimic this model and eventually provide a bit of a conversational partner as well as a bit of a guardian angel per se for my grandparents. Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. So when I started this project mostly just by looking, say I was making my project for real people. So how I started my project had to go with a lot of talking to people. So that first included to reaching out to a senior center near my house. They declined for an interview, but I think that was the first step, and that made me even this sort of kind of prep me for an expectation of failure per se, and also give me more hopes for success. So in the end, I also talked to some local senior care professionals in the area to learn more about the state of the industry and also to shape my device around what actually seniors needed and senior care providers needed, and not just an image of what I wanted to have that for myself. And that's how I started my project. Afterwards, it was just coding, and well, I'm pretty sure you know the rest of the story. Afterwards, so I learned about the World AI competition for youth. Especially just searching online after I was sometime in my project. I wanted to see some places to showcase it. And this was one of the competitions that came up. For doing research, I was quite impressed, and that's why I decided to show up. Oh, that's a great question. So as I want to go into engineering in the future and want to do a lot of other things, among others, schoolwork has always occupied a pretty large facet of my life. But I've usually tried to balance these in kind of two ways. In essence, I'd manage my time, at least attempt to manage my time very well during the weekdays and have all of that almost reserved for schoolwork per se. But sometimes I would also, in the evenings, I wanted to take a little break or so in the weekdays, I'd also look at some of the things that potentially I was interested in adding to my project. Like, for example, how do we mimic natural conversation? I'd potentially read an article over the span of the week. And then in the weekend, I'd start looking over my excess schoolwork per se. And after that, all the time I had left during the weekend was something that I could use to start working on my project. I also took advantage of some of this breaks I have in between school to add more coding pieces and whatnot to my project. So it's definitely a process per se. Another thing I also attempted to do was I attempted to integrate some of the stuff that I was learning at school into some of the ways that I was going to present or create this thing. For example, I currently do extemporaneous speaking for my school and as part of the debate team. So sometimes I use some of the articles I looked on there, potentially talking about senior care or potentially global aging per se, and add in some of those issues presented as well as some of the stats into my project. Oh yeah, I'd say definitely some of the challenges I've had. Mostly it came sort of with this dual cycle of thinking about what I wanted to create and then also creating it. If we're thinking about what I wanted to create, once again, I'd say the main challenge here was just talking to people. And to be honest, for just a student like me trying to reach out to actual professionals in the field, getting a response, singling a time and whatnot, it definitely seemed and was a pretty large barrier. And this was probably one of my main challenges, just talking to people and sometimes just finding the resources too about where I could look on it. Eventually, after a certain portion of my project has gone by, I couldn't just go on a simple Google search. I had to look for a bunch of research journals and whatnot, but sometimes these journals cost quite a lot of money. So I had to look around for workarounds for that. I'd say my best tip is that everything in this project, it's understandable to be hard and frustrated at potentially how fast the progress is going or not going. But I'd say that once you start doing it and start picking up momentum, it gets easier and easier. So afterwards for implementation, I also had a few issues too. Mostly I had to deal with issues with coding. My project is relatively complex considering how when we actually naturally converse, it's like our eyesight, how we speak, our facial expression, even the content of what we are saying. It all is a pretty complex process that is all synthesized within our brain. And then trying to mimic that is already quite a large process per se. So just trying to go through every single facet like that. I'd say it's that my project kind of forced me to chunk it down, but do it in chunks, but also just doing it in chunks for something that potentially can be done a bit more fluently is also a tip that I would have to overcome the challenge of potentially implementation and being swarmed with such a giant task at once. Thank you. So for my project, I'd say that as a primary iteration, my project follows a bit of a modular design. In essence, all of the modules being added are attempted to pick up on or apply to certain facets of how we speak. And so my next steps definitely with this modular design potentially is to add more modules per se. Like for example, one of the ones that I'm currently working on, and well, in essence, I've pretty much just barely finished, is based on finding reminders for seniors potentially for their appointments. And essentially, it's with these modules, it's kind of like how we think per se. It's like how we sort of put on some personalities. Like right now, I'm in my interview personality, and I'd say I want to mimic that for my system. And afterwards, I'm currently implementing my project as an embedded system. It's kind of like something like a Samsung smart fridge, so that it's easier for seniors to use per se. And that's one of the things that I'd say stay tuned to. For myself personally, I want to continue working on this project as well as going further into engineering potentially to learn more about leveraging artificial intelligence. I'd say that as an algorithm, artificial intelligence has the means to drastically improve how we can potentially extract and utilize capital within our lifestyles. And I'd say that I want to do A not only to be able to create systems that can produce this capital, but also start thinking about how potentially we can use these systems in a way that will benefit the greatest amount of us. Oh, of course. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Of course, well, I'd say that my main message to everybody here is that just like artificial intelligence, when we start training these models, they all go through a bunch of they go through convolution, they go through a bunch of iterations, but as they do so, they progressively improve. And I'd say that this is a message that I would like to share. It's that at first we all learn, as we learn about AI, we learn a bit like AI per se. We're trying to mimic, AI tries to mimic us. In essence, we are also sort of mimicking AI. And in essence, through each iteration, we can all make ourselves better people. And not only that, in this process, also try and create a better communities among us. So I'd say that my message is that if you are starting to do AI, it seems it's a daunting task, but all you need to do is to just keep doing it. And eventually through not only when you're learning through practice, but also learning through experience and learning through theory, eventually we all become better people. And we all become better engineers and better citizens.